Congratulations, you just got a job offer. And attached to that job offer is an employment contract. You're probably going to sign it without changing a single word because, well, that's what most people do. Here's something you don't know, though, that your employer does. Almost everything in that contract is negotiable. The start date, the non-compete, what happens if they let you go, even the clause that might give them ownership of something that you built on your own time. And something very important to many people, remote work and in-office flexibility, in addition to plenty of other terms too. But they're not going to bring that up, not unless you do first. Here's exactly what you're getting in this video. I'm going to walk you through 5 things in your employment contract that are actually negotiable. Things most employees never even think to push back on. Then I'm going to give you a word-for-word script that you can use to start that conversation without it being awkward. And at the end, you'll get your to-do list, the exact steps to take before you sign anything. If you find this useful, then please go hit subscribe. I put out a new video every Tuesday breaking down the legal stuff most people don't know that they need to know. I'm a lawyer. I've reviewed hundreds of employment contracts and negotiated on both sides of the table, both for the employer and the employee. Now let's get into it. Let me tell you what I hear all the time. Someone gets an employment offer. They're so excited. They really don't want to rock the boat. The human resources person says, "This is our standard contract," and hands them a stack of pages. And then the employee just signs it because they're afraid that asking questions will make them look difficult. That fear, that costs people money. It costs them freedom. And sometimes it costs them the rights to work they created on their own time. The truth is this: every employer expects some negotiation. They build room into their contracts for exactly that reason. The question isn't whether you can negotiate. It's whether you know what to ask for. Here are 5 things you should always look at. Negotiable item number 1, your start date. This one surprises people every time. Your start date is negotiable, almost always. Employers put a date in the offer letter and most people assume it's fixed. It isn't. You can ask for more time. You might need it to wind down your current role properly. You might need a week to handle personal logistics. You might just want a break between jobs, which you've earned. I've seen candidates successfully push back start dates by 2 to 4 weeks without any issue. The employer wants you. They're not going to rescind an offer just because you asked for a reasonable amount of time. The way to ask for it is simple. Here's how you do it. I'm very excited about this role. To make sure I can make a clean transition and be fully focused from day one, would it be possible to start on, and then ask about whatever date you'd like to start on? That's it. Easy ask. High success rate. Negotiable item number 2, the non-compete clause. This is a high stakes item and is one that can follow you for years if you don't address it before you sign. A non-compete clause says that after you leave this job, you can't work for a competitor for a certain period of time, in a certain geographic area, in a certain role. That sounds reasonable until you look at what competitor actually means in their definition. I've seen contracts where it covered basically the entire industry the employee had spent their career in. Here's what you can negotiate. The duration of the non-compete clause. Push for 6 months maximum, not 1 or 2 years. The geographic scope. It should cover where the company actually competes, not the entire country. The list of competitors. Push for named companies rather than vague industry language. And the definition of your role. It should be narrow, covering what you'll actually be doing, not everything you're capable of. Several states, including California, Minnesota, North Dakota, and Oklahoma, they've effectively banned non-competes entirely. If you're in one of those states, you have significant leverage here, and the FTC has been moving towards restricting non-competes at the federal level. I've seen people sign a non-compete clause and then get laid off 6 months later, only to discover that they couldn't take a job in their field for a year. That's the consequence of not reading this clause carefully. Coming up in a second, you'll see an on-screen graphic with a more thorough list of states that have banned or heavily restricted non-compete clauses. Negotiable item number 3, severance terms. Nobody wants to think about getting fired before they've even started. I get it. But hear me out. Severance is negotiated before you take the job, when you have the most leverage, not after you've been let go, when you have almost no leverage. Most employment contracts say nothing specific about severance, which means if they let you go, you get whatever they decide to offer, which in many cases is very little or nothing at all. You can ask for a severance clause. Specifically, you can ask for a guaranteed number of weeks of pay if you're terminated without cause. 1 week per year of service is a common floor. Senior roles often get 2 to 4 weeks per year or more. You can also negotiate what happens to your unvested equity, your benefits continuation, and your bonus if you're let go mid-year. These are all legitimate asks, and the time to make them is before you sign, not after you're packing up your desk. Negotiable item number 4, the Intellectual Property and Invention Assignment Clause. This is the most overlooked clause that almost nobody reads. And it also might be the most consequential one in the whole contract. The Intellectual Property and Invention Assignment Clause says that work you create during your employment belongs to the company. Well, that sounds fair, right? Well, hold on a second. Many of these clauses are written so broadly that they can capture things you build on your own time, on your own computer, completely unrelated to your job. I've spoken with people who had a side project, something like an app, a creative work, a small business, and they discovered after signing their employment contract that their employer had a potential claim to it. Not because anyone planned to act on it, but because the language was that broad and nobody pushed back. Here's what you can negotiate. A specific carve-out for work created on your own time, using your own equipment unrelated to the company's business. Many employers will agree to this because they don't actually want your side project. They just want to protect themselves for work done in the scope of employment. The language just needs to be tighter. If you have a side business, a creative project, or anything you've been working on outside of work, list it in an exhibit attached to your employment contract before you sign. Most contracts have a provision for exactly this. Use it. Negotiable item number 5, remote work and schedule flexibility. Particularly after COVID, this one feels obvious, but still, most people don't get it in writing. If your employer says, "We're flexible on remote work," or "We do hybrid" during your interviews, get it in your employment contract. Verbal promises about work arrangements don't hold up. I've seen people take jobs based on a flexibility promise that disappeared 3 months in when a new manager arrived. Here's what to ask for. Specific language about your work location, your in-office days if hybrid, and what the policy is if the company changes its approach. You can also ask about flexibility in your hours, core hours versus flexible start and end times. This isn't just about comfort. It's about documentation. If they told you during the hiring process that you could work from home 3 days a week and then demand 5 days in the office after you've started, you want to be able to point to the contract. Get it in writing every single time. Now that we've covered the 5 things you should try to negotiate in your employment contract, here's the word-for-word script I promised you. When you're ready to negotiate, here's how you open that conversation without it feeling confrontational. Thank you so much for the offer. I'm genuinely excited about this role and the team. I've had a chance to review the contract, and I'd love to discuss a few things before I sign. Is this a good time, or would it be better to connect later this week? That statement accomplishes 3 things. Number 1, it confirms your enthusiasm, so they know you're not walking away. Number 2, it signals you've read the contract, which immediately sets you apart from 90% of the candidates. And number 3, it asks for a conversation rather than making demands. Then you bring up one item at a time. Start with the easiest ask, the start date. Build from there. You don't need to negotiate everything in one call, and taking it item by item makes the conversation feel collaborative rather than adversarial. One more thing. Silence is your friend. After you make an ask, stop talking. Let them respond. Most people fill the silence with concessions. Don't be that person. Finally, as promised, here's your to-do list. 5 steps before you sign your employment contract. Step 1. Ask for 48 to 72 hours to review the contract. Any legitimate employer will give you this. If they won't, well, that tells you something important about how they operate. Step 2. Read every clause. Not just the salary section. All of it. Mark anything you don't understand or don't like. Step 3. Check the non-compete clause. How long? How broad? Which states does it cover? And remember, if you're in California, Minnesota, North Dakota, or Oklahoma, you may have the right to reject it entirely. Step 4. List your side projects or existing work schedule in the intellectual property exhibit before you sign. If your contract has an exclusion schedule, use it. If it doesn't have one, ask for one. Employers are usually okay granting this just about every single time. Step 5. Use the script I gave you. One ask at a time. Start with the easiest item and build up from there. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Have you ever tried to negotiate an employment contract? If you did, what happened? Drop it in the comments. I'll read every one, and those real experiences shape exactly what I'll cover in future videos. Finally, if this was useful, please subscribe. New video every Tuesday. And if you want to understand what happens after you sign, specifically what your employer can and cannot legally do once you're working there, I did a full video on workplace privacy and monitoring. What they can see, what they can't, and the hard lines they can never cross. That's linked above. See you Tuesday.